Hey everyone. So for those of you who don't know me, because there are a lot of new faces, I am Suman. And currently I'm just doing a little work in the Nilgiris. So greetings from our little group, our house church that's gathering there. It's crazy for me to be in Chennai in summer when I should be chilling in Nilgiris. But it's always a joy because Chennai has really become also a home for me. So I'm thrilled and stoked to be here. So today, this lose it, what? Use it or lose it. So first I thought it sounds like a threat, right? Is the church threatening us? If you don't use it, you're going to lose it. And then we also hear all this hustle culture, and I think some of you had those questions. And the world is also terrorizing us with that, right? If you don't hustle, again, you will lose it. Hustle or lose it. And so what are we supposed to do as people of the new creation, as people who know Christ, as people who are in the world yet not of the world? And it's very, very challenging. And somehow I've got through your age group and I am where I am now. And it is but by the grace of God. So we'll try to interact a little bit. I was really thinking it'll be a smaller group and we will chat. But I think you can feel free to raise your voice. You will not be judged. And we'll try our best not to laugh. So, don't hesitate. So, plus we're in the afternoon, evenings, snooze time. So, we'll talk a little. So, just a few thoughts. Like when Jesus talks about fruitfulness, right? You must have heard the incident, especially this Good Friday, Easter time, where he saw that fig tree and he looked for fruit and it was very green, no fruit, and he killed the tree, right? So he was looking for fruit. Then we are told in Luke about a parable of a gardener. Again, the owner is coming looking for fruit. The tree is not bearing fruit. He tells the gardener, chop it off. The gardener says, give me one more year, right? What is Jesus actually expecting? When we talk fruitfulness, what is the image that's actually coming to your mind? So if you don't want to talk to me, look at someone beside you. I don't think we need to be strangers here. If it's a girl, guy, whatever, let's break out of that shyness. When you think fruitfulness, what's the first picture that's coming to your mind? Just tell somebody. When you think fruitfulness, in the world, or don't think Christian answer, please, okay? Just in general. When you think fruitfulness, yeah. Okay, can you shout out a few that I can hear? What's the image that's coming? Or the thought? Oh my goodness. Please don't feel shy. Yeah? What's that? Profit, okay, money. Lot of mangoes, fruit, okay. What else? Any other images coming to your mind? Sorry? Okay, something about a value. Something is invested and something has to come. Okay, so we'll think about it a little. What did God expect from Adam and Eve when, in a sense, everything was kind of done for them, right? Like, just bindas, enjoying their life there. And yet something was expected of them. Obedience. Any other thoughts? What was expected of Adam and Eve? They had everything. Sorry? They were, okay, the multiply part, excellent, well done. But the be fruitful, what is that? What do you think God expected of them? So think about it, okay? Just think about it. It's something that your brain should work on. The other thing that Jesus always ultifies everything. Na? So he's talking a sermon and then suddenly he says, many will come to me and they will say, I brought so many people to Christ. I brought so many people to church. I shared the gospel with so many people. I distributed so many tracts. I healed so many people. I cast out so many demons. So many people that I laid my hands on, they fell slain in the spirit or they started speaking. And they'll come to Jesus and say, I did this. And Jesus will say, sorry, bro, sorry, dude, I don't know you. So there is something about fruitfulness that we understand as numbers, mass, product, profit, or something like that. But for Jesus, the dynamic seems to be something little bit different. On the other side, we get told the story of the talents also. One guy is, two of them, they doubled it. one guy is like, yo, I can't do all this. I'll just return it as it was. So he buried it and gave. That guy, you'll think, okay, he played safe. But he also gets thrown out, right? So both are two extremes. One is they are counting on the kind of work that they did, and Jesus saying, you got it all wrong. There's another saying, okay, this life is given by God. Yes, yes, yes. I'll give it back to God. But there's nothing happening in between. And that also is failure. So what is Jesus actually meaning by productivity or fruitfulness? So I believe it's a combination of faithfulness as well as fruitfulness. So if you read John 15 sometime, okay, like we won't go through all the passages, but you can just make note of it. Jesus says, as long as you are in me, the one about the vine and the branches, you will bear much fruit. But if you separate yourself from me, you will wither and die. Apart from me, you can do nothing. So there is something about being connected with God that makes us fruitful. So what Adam and Eve did, and I'm on a repeat mode in this, so for those of you who have already heard me on this, forgive me. But we think Adam and Eve, their mistake was disobedience, right? And God tricked them by putting a tree, gave them a trick question, and knew they'll fall over. But what do you think is the root of the problem with the Adam and Eve thing? What was the actual mistake they made? Huh? Yeah, I mean, they acknowledge God, okay? It's not like they said, I don't need God. But they said, okay, this world is nice, everything is nice, I'm the boss here, everything is listening to me, I get to name the animals, the trees, etc., etc. I will take care of this earth by myself. Why do I need to trust in God for it? I'll acknowledge Him, I still love Him, I want to talk with Him, but I think I can do this without Him. Okay, so Adam and Eve's problem was not disobedience, that was only a fruit. The problem actually was, and you know, biting into a fruit is not going to give them wisdom, right? It's all imageries to communicate a certain point. The problem is they said, we will do it by ourselves, okay? I'll do it my way, Frank Sinatra, for those of you from that zamana, okay? I will do it my way, I'll do it by myself, I'll do it by myself. That was the problem with Adam and Eve. So, on one side, God wants faithfulness, where we trust Him and we depend on Him, but we also, a consequence of that also means we will bear fruit. So I believe this faithfulness plus fruitfulness, okay, which is going to lead to productivity, etc., is basically has to do with the wisdom of God. And again, Adam and Eve wanted the wisdom without spending time with God, but they wanted to get that wisdom by biting into a fruit. What can I do? If I bring so many people to Christ, does that mean I'll get God's wisdom? If I do this for Jesus, does that mean I'll get a pass to heaven? If I serve in VBS, I will be blessed. You get it? This is our mindset, because our mindset is very much a symbiotic. You understand symbiosis? Okay? I'll do this, but what do I get in return? Quid pro quo? Yeah? I give, but I must get something back, right? So that's our mindset with God. So that comes from a very pagan philosophy where the gods, okay, it's just it's not true, obviously. But this is what the pagans believe, that the gods got really tired fending for themselves, food and this, that. So they decided to make mankind. And they told mankind, you bring us the food, you bring us stuff to eat, etc. Take care of our land, our property. In turn, we will bless you with fertility, we will bless you with rain in season. So it is just an idea. So the pagans always had that, if I do this for God, God will do this for me. Sounds very Christian also, right? Because our mind works like that. If I do this for God, then God will do this for me. The Tower of Babel, what was the problem there? It sounds like, what is God's problem? They are trying to get to Him, no? They are actually not trying to get to Him. They were trying to build a tower to get God to come down, because that's what ziggurats are, to bring God down, not for the glory of God, not to have God's presence among them, but so that God would bless them and make a name for themselves. So I'm just bringing this out just to get our philosophy right, because there are many things we will do very similar to the world. There will be many practices that you can learn from, the corporate world, etc. Very interesting disciplines and all of that. But if you get your philosophy wrong, you will be serving something else. And so it's very, very important to first get your philosophy right, your worldview, why you do what you do. What is the reason for it? What is your belief system? If that's not right, everything else gets affected. So faithfulness has to do with knowing who our God is, spending that time with Him, understanding Him. He's not some emotionally weak person who gets really upset when you went for a movie and didn't come to a church gathering. He's not some, he'll be cutty with you because you didn't get up and talk to him, but you immediately called your boyfriend or a girlfriend. He's not that desperate, okay? The reason we go to him first is for my own well-being, okay? So anyway, I'll get to all that. So faithfulness has to come from God is faithful to us, and we are learning to be faithful to Him, like in a covenant relationship. Fruitfulness often has to do with results. What's the word you use? The profit, numbers, meetings, budgets. They'll be counting how many people are here. You would have seen people with a counter, walking around. Because attendance is very important. Everything is measured in numbers. It's not a problem. But if that becomes the priority without faithfulness, gone. Faithfulness without produce, fruit, is also a problem. That's why I'm bringing these two words, faithfulness along with fruitfulness. It's a both and, okay? So God's way is not for just this world, right? This Good Friday in our church, we were talking from 1 Corinthians. And Paul is talking about, I preach Christ crucified, and it's a scandal to the Jews. It's a stumbling block. How can you call someone who dies on the cross, the most shameful, criminal way to die, how can you call him God? How can you say he's king? Messiah has everything to do with pomp and splendor and riches and that. So for the Jews, it was a scandal. For the Greeks, it's like, are you mad? Foolishness. And so Paul goes on to say the wisdom of God will look like foolishness for the world. And in another chapter, by 1 Corinthians 15, he'll say, if only for this world you're looking for Christ and you're putting your hope in Christ, only for this world, you should be pitied the most. Our hope is not for this world. It is in the one to come. But this prepares us for that. If we cannot be faithful here, we will not be faithful there. If we are not productive here, we will not be able to be productive there. So this is our training ground, right? So I'm just putting a bunch of stuff. I want you to make note of some convictions, right? Like use your phone without opening your SMSs and getting distracted. But like, what would be some of the convictions? Like, where are you in your faithfulness part? Where are you in your productivity part? And let's not separate ministry from work, okay? As you learn, you will realize they are all going together. God is not putting this compartment, this compartment, this compartment. Full-time ministry is not something that's higher or lower than anything, right? All of us are in full-time ministry. It starts with our own home. It starts with our church family. It starts at our workplace. Whatever you do as unto the Lord, that becomes our good work. Okay, so the question that you need to settle in your mind is, who is my master? Jesus said, right, you better settle this. Who are you actually reporting to? Think of your boss that you hate, the guide in your lab that you hate, your prof who's like that pain that you hate. Who is actually the one you're reporting to? So think about that. Who is your master? Who do you report? Why do you work? Are you working so that Christ will bless you, or because Christ has blessed you, you are working? It's all a matter of thought. Because of Christ, you're doing this, 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 or you're doing this, 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 so that Christ will bless you. Making sense? Okay, so that's something you need to settle. What is the attitude in your mind when it comes to any work, be it studying or a job, or sometimes you have to quit your job to take care of someone who's ill at home. If you feel like a paid job is something very valuable, and an unpaid job, like a full-time job of taking care of your very sick nani or your grandmom, grandpa, someone, and taking care of that is in some way lesser. So it's all reflecting on your attitude of mind. So what is your attitude of mind? Is it for Christ? Or are you doing certain things so that Christ will bless you? Is it just money is deciding everything? If money is deciding everything, then that's capitalism. It's money is the God, not God is not God. Money is the God if money is making the decisions, right? So I just want you to think of what some convictions are, and we'll take some time, I think, where we'll sit and reflect. And that time you need to write down a couple of your convictions. So I feel like let's get our philosophy right. Fruitfulness, faithfulness has to do with our relationship with God. So I just jotted down a couple of practical things that worked for me. If something doesn't make sense, please make note of it, and there's a time when we can talk about it, I think. But this is what I do, right? So for me, it's like I've got to start my day right. It doesn't matter if it's a morning, like I'm a proper morning person. And I had my wake-up call when I was like, I think 8th standard. So I think I was about 13 years old. Major wake-up call. I failed in my math exam and full one drama I did. And then I decided I can't do this anymore. And I said, I'm going to study. And I went to another extreme of becoming a weird type of nerd, not even a decent nerd, okay, who was smart, but it's one stupid creature I became. Anyway, but some good things God started working in my heart. One was, because I'm a kind of a morning person, my brain works well in the morning. By afternoon, physical things I can tackle, but my brain starts acting funny. So I keep a lot of physical activities, etc., for later in the day, but I have to start my day with God. If I don't, there's a major misfiring that happens in my brain. The monster in me comes out. So the reason I spend time with God, honestly, is to chase that monster every day, is to chase that self that I'm doing this by myself. So I learned to wire my brain that I'll take a nap for like I think from my 8th standard. Please don't do this, okay? There are some things that I will say that you should not do. It's not good. I started deciding I'll only sleep 5 hours. Imagine a 12-year-old deciding that 5 hours, which later for the last 18 years, except for this last year, I was sleeping only 3 hours a day. That's not good. And I would say you're a fool to do something like that. So I'm telling you, don't do that. But even if I slept that 1 hour or 2 hours, the minute I wake up, for me, it's my morning. There'll be times I will wake up, I'll sleep at 10 o'clock, get up at 11 in the night, and it's like my morning is starting. So irrespective of when I wake up, I have to spend that time with God. Even if I don't finish my studying for that portion, even if I feel like I'm going to go to office late, which is a very difficult thing for me to do. I'm a procrastinator, okay, if you understand that term. I have to work hard to procrastinate, okay? So it's a weird thing. So one thing I realized, is my priorities is I've got to start my day with Christ. So it doesn't matter if I don't finish my portions. It doesn't matter if I go late. So the thing is, I'll never go late to work, which is why, like, if I know I have to be at this place at this time, my sleep will get compromised, but I will not compromise my time with God. And the reason is not that God will say, I'm not talking to you, you didn't spend time with me. He's not that desperate, okay? But I need it, because if I don't, this goes a little crazy, okay? My brain starts wiring all crazy stuff. So my question to you is, what time is your work? Or what time is your study thing? Okay, like is it 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock? Let's assume average time. My question to you is, what time do you wake up? What time do you wake up? Are you waking up just in time to just pick up your bag and run? Because I've been working with youth for at least 17, 18 years of my life, okay? So I know every excuse, and I know all those who will run behind the auto, they wouldn't have had bath, they wouldn't have eaten. All they do is pick up their bag and they run, okay? So my question, so this is something for you to think about. What time do you wake up? Are you intentionally calculating your time with the Lord into your daily schedule as a non-negotiable? If you don't get this right, it's like I don't know, Jenga blocks put on something that can't stand. You build this right, I'm telling you, everything else will start falling into place. Unless you taste this and see it, you will not understand it. Because the first thing that gets scrapped from our schedule is our time, Bible reading time, our prayer time. Always. That's the first thing that gets scrapped. So what can you do to work on it? Okay, the second thing is, this whole hustle culture and God's culture. I feel there are a lot of similarities, okay? Like I think they say things like, give yourself fully, work hard, work smart, make use of every opportunity. There's no place for laziness. Be the best at what you do, specialize, etc. Like the Bible is also telling you exactly that. But the why is the difference. So if you imagine like, a triangle, the broad base is your philosophy. Then you get some structure, you get some tools, okay? So if your philosophy is not right, everything else will topple. So the why is different. So the world does it so that they will get money, so that they will get fame, so that they will be able to go on fancy vacations, so that they can buy a property in this. So the why you do what you do is a big, big, big difference. The one is going to lead, yes, maybe you'll get a lot of money, etc., but it's going to lead to depression. It's going to lead to early burnout. By the time you're my age, you'll be dead, okay? All the kind of stress-related diseases that are seen in young people right now is madness. God has not created or wired a body to be like that. You should not be getting diabetes. You should not be getting palpitations. You should not be getting heart disease. You should not be getting alopecia. I had that. I lost a patch of my hair. I thought, oh my goodness, Will Smith's wife, that's what I was thinking. Am I going to get totally bald? What would I do if I actually lose all my hair? How can I make it cool and all that? But that's what stress does to you, right? And God is not wanting us to be like that. So if you think hustle culture, that's the consequences. You'll probably have to wear a wig. You'll be taking antidepressants. You'll be taking all kinds of stuff that's going to be happening. And burnout, self-dependence, depending on yourself, pumping yourself up, and awesome, and perfect, and this and that. Anyone who's tried it will know it's super shallow. It'll work for some time. Most of the days you'll really feel like, I don't know, terrible. But on the other side, when your dependence is on God, if Adam and Eve said no to the temptation of the serpent, if Adam and Eve said, why do we need that fruit? We have God, we're talking to him daily. They would have experienced work in such an enjoyable way where it is not with stress. So you know what was the actual consequence of the fall? They lost that relationship with God. And because of it, anxiety. That's what came in. Because the anxiety is you're depending on yourself rather than you're depending on God. Sounds familiar? I've been there. When I'm dependent on myself, like you're overthinking, you're getting mad, you're getting crazy, you're pacing up and down, you're tossing, you're not able to sleep, you're not talking decently to people, you look crazy, everything is gone, your face is so heavy and dull and dark. Why? Because you're depending on yourself. And when you're depending on yourself, at some point, the anxiety takes over. Anxiety, let me tell you people, is a consequence of the fall. For those of us who are in Christ, it is possible to live an anxiety-free life. Not that you won't have trouble, not that you won't battle sickness, not that you will not experience failure, not that you will, not experience bankruptcy or all that crazy stuff. But you'll still be able to go through it because God is there and my life is not for this world, it is for the one that is to come. So the other one leads, if you choose God and you take grasp of every opportunity, you are hardworking, you're sincere, you're dedicated, you wake up early. But the reason you do it is because God. And now it's a matter of stewardship and not a matter of making money. What were Adam and Eve called to do? They were asked to steward what God had given into their hands. They just wanted to do it by themselves. Consequence? Anxiety, stress, pain, sorrow. Okay. So I want to introduce you to any physics people here? You. Engineers? Kind of. Okay, fine. Do you understand the principle of the fulcrum? Okay, this is anyone who knows me will have surely heard this phrase. The principle of the fulcrum? Yeah, okay. So there is a picture there. I don't know if it'll come. But that's my hint, by the way. Okay. So the principle of the fulcrum basically is, I think one of the points in your question was, how do I balance life? So I have my studies, I have my parents, I have my girlfriend, boyfriend, I have my class friends, I have so many things to juggle. How do I actually balance it out? And we think if we split it as 50-50, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 20, 20, 20, or however you split your time, you think you can balance it, but actually you'll be in a big mess. So the idea of the principle of the fulcrum, like your seesaw, I don't know if that JPEG is, okay, it's not working. So, I mean, there was a GIF to it. So the idea of the principle of the fulcrum is suddenly one weight will, if you put that fulcrum is that triangular thing, you put it in the middle like your seesaw and you kind of balance it out. But if there's too much weight on one side, actually the fulcrum being in the middle will not balance it. So how do you balance it? You move the fulcrum closer to the weight. And you still can establish balance by moving closer to the weight. So the idea of the fulcrum is it's not about breaking up that time equally. It's about getting your priorities right, first of all, and we'll get to that in a bit. But it's also like sometimes your family will be that load and you need to move the fulcrum there and give them that extra time. Then there will be some crisis at work. So immediately you'll be like, family, you got to understand this. I have to, fight this fire at work. And so you move the fulcrum there and you tackle that. So there'll be times where, you'll be working one whole week. You haven't come home. You've only been in office because you're troubleshooting. So you move it there. But that doesn't mean you stay there. Now you have to move it back. Once things settle, you keep, so this fulcrum is constantly moving between the different parts and the priorities of your life. The question is, what would be your priority? So if you don't prioritize, so my issue is like, I'm still unmarried. And when I came into ministry, so I come from a bit of a science background, and I told you I was a little bit of that nutty person. And I started my first research project when I was 21 at a UN-funded international research institute. So it was like a great thing for me. I was the only undergrad there, and I was working with some amazing people. And I learned my work ethics from them. So we had one of my mentors who I still like, a lot of my work ethics are from him. He was 77, I think, at that time. He will sleep only these 3 hours, okay? And he'll come off to the lab. He's retired. He's not being paid by them, but he will come off to the lab. 3 o'clock, he goes walking in the morning, finishes all that. By 6 o'clock, he's in the lab working. So my thing as a, 20, 21-year-old is, before he comes to lab, I want to be there, because it's my chance to interact with him. So I was like, I wanted to be that mad scientist type of person. And then there was a clear day when God said, like literally I felt like some of you, this is repeat mode. I felt like he picked me up, shook me in the air, and he said, I'm bringing so many people into your life, Suman, what are you doing about them? Yes, you can come up with this research, this, that, but my people, okay, and that's when something started shifting in, because I can be in the lab 3 days straight and not talk to people, not have anything to do with people, and I'll be absolutely fine. So I'm not the people person type of person. I'm very fine alone, okay? But God shook me and he said, no, people are priority. And so he started changing me to feel for people. I'll cry for dogs with a broken leg, or, something street dog that is there, I'll be like, cry lab. But for people, I wouldn't shed a tear. That's how I was. But God has just transformed me completely, because for me, for him, he said, the priority is people. And so people come first. And so slowly that started working in my life to a point where, I was a bit of a workaholic. I wouldn't use that label for myself now. So which is why I'm saying don't do many of the things that I did. So I think I left home when I was 17. And I still tell all these kids who have grown up with me, I keep saying, you got to leave home at 17, 18. Then only you learn responsibility. You learn to manage your finances. You learn how to tackle life. And so I left home at 17. Literally, it's after 23 years that currently I'm at my hometown. And I really felt convicted by God that there is so much I devoted myself to church. Because first it was my lab and my work. Then it became church. And while I was soothing myself, thinking I'm doing ministry, actually that workaholic thing was still actually there. Till God convicted me and said, your family. And so it's like, okay, What do I need to shift? So I moved the fulcrum that way. And for me to serve my aging mother, to serve my aging uncle and aunt and be there for them, for me, looks like foolishness for the world. But for me, I know it is a fulcrum adjusting for this period of time. So you got to get your priorities right. So the balance, remember always the principle of the fulcrum. And the tendency for us is because we don't like change, we'll adjust something and then we set it there. We don't like to change the settings after that. But you have to go and keep on adjusting that. So that life assessments, I don't know how many of you like assessments. I love it. Okay, I keep doing assessments for myself. So you have to constantly, like Google Maps says, recenter, 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 recenter. If you don't, you're going to land up somewhere else. Then you land up somewhere and then you're like totally lost. What do? You have to chart all that, come back, so much time wasted, so many cuss words would have come out of your mouth, frustrated, tension. Better is to do it every now and then so that you don't drift off somewhere else. Does the principle of the fulcrum make sense? It's something very important. And the priority is not just work, work, work. You also have to, the self-care, what the world calls, no. There is some sense to it, by the way. But the world says, pamper yourself, go on a vacation, go to spa and all that jazz. But the point that God is telling you about taking care of yourself is so that you will not be a burden to anybody. Don't go and get that mental breakdown and land up at home, okay? Take care of yourself daily so that this is working fine and physically you're fine so that you will not be a burden on anybody, but instead you will be a help to others. Okay, so in that video ad that they had made, use it or lose it, there was a nice phrase which I like that they used, make time your ally. So I like this word ally a lot, okay? Make time your friend, make time your partner, right? So one of the works I want you to do is, you need to clock your time. You feel like, so one of my complaints early on in life was, God, I wish there were more than 24 hours in a day. Okay, so whatever the calculation is. And literally God's instant reply was, so you think I made a mistake? And then instantly I was like, oh my goodness, no way. So I sat down one day and I wrote down, what am I spending my time on? So I thought I'm so busy, right? But I found out, one, I spent too much time in the toilet, which I should not do. The other was, there were so many other things that I was wasting time. Like my thoughts were flowing so well. All I needed to do is sit and write it. But correctly, then that temptation to check your phone, right? To check, did you get any messages? And the minute you follow that rabbit trail, gone. The thought process is gone, idea is gone, everything is gone. You'll go and open that fridge 100 times. Is there something there to eat? Is there something that suddenly miraculously appeared that wasn't there 2 minutes back, right? Like, I mean, I still do this, okay? But I realize at least, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. Instead, some snack will be on my table, okay? So clock your time usage and find out, don't judge yourself, but at least assess, how are you actually spending your time? How much time are you spending on commuting? So many times I would spend, like in some of my workplaces, I barely got a salary, but I did the work I did because I love it. Half of it, more than half of it would go just to pay the rent so that I can stay in the campus, right? So that I avoid that travel thing. So be wise in what you tackle. Like if you're doing a lot of travel, you're going to be exhausted, you're going to waste a lot of time, you're going to sleep in that bus, train, whatever, or spend so much time on the road. So think through, what are you actually spending your time on? Okay, so that's something I want you to think of. Another thing about making time your ally, right, is there is research that has shown that you are more productive when there is less time available for you. I don't know if that makes sense to you. So the saying is, you really want to get something done, give it to the busiest person there. That's how I used to be here. 24 hours, I'll be here in this office space. Okay, there are many times I've spent the whole night here working. Because if you want something done, you give it to someone who's super busy. So someone who's super busy will just want to get the job done. So they'll do it because they don't have time, right? So they'll get the job done. But those who feel like, I have all day, then the procrastination starts. I'll do it tomorrow. And then we know tomorrow never comes. So that's why deadlines are actually good. And when they talk all smart goals and all, you're familiar with all that, right? I'm not going to talk all those things. So be realistic with your goals, but it's very important to have deadlines. And you must always keep deadlines. The day you decide, not keeping this deadline, tomorrow it'll be easier. So the day I skip my Bible reading, I know God will understand, God will understand. I'll manage. Tomorrow, what happens? It's easier for me to miss it. And the third day, even more easier. Before I realize it's been a week, it's been a month since I spent that time. So it's you relate with it, right? So what I would do is, if I miss my Bible reading time, for me, it's a huge priority because I know my brain and I know myself, and I don't want the monster in me to come out. Every day I kill it, okay? So if I skip my Bible reading time in the morning for whatever reason, so something happened, I will see that I will somehow find some time in between. I'll take a break somewhere or I'll stay up late at night, but I will not I have the Bible reading plan. I will never use shift day forward. I will never use it. I will sit and read, because it's not that God will understand not. I do not trust myself. And that's what I would tell you guys. Do not trust yourself. The flesh will always look for excuse, escape, something or the other. Solomon says, no, the sluggard will say, oh, yo, there's a lion outside, I'm not going out. So that's an excuse to stay in. Oh, you COVID, corona, I better stay in. For everything, you'll find some, excuse to not do what you're supposed to do. So I really want to encourage you to have deadlines. There is this whole thing called the Pareto principle. Are you familiar with that? It's some ancient stuff, but it makes sense, okay? The Pareto principle is, if you have 100%, 20% of rightly investing your time on certain priorities will yield 80% of the outcome. Now, they've done a bunch of research to say this, that if you get your priorities right, and you focus your energy on the 20% of the important things, you will get 80% of outcome. But if you spend 80% of your time on all these other unimportant things, your outcome will always be only 20%. So you really have to ask yourself, the next picture is, are you doing the right things? Is your time being spent on the right things? So that's the decluttering, right? That word came in that video. How do you declutter? So you really need to check your priorities. This is all what they teach in corporate world. I'm so glad that in the church, finally, we are also talking these things, right? So that we get the why and the philosophy right. So what are your priorities? What do you actually want to achieve? Don't just think in a worldly sense. You have a commitment to your family. Don't chuck your parents out of the picture of your life, okay? Don't chuck friends and family, brother and sister. Always see them in your priority list, okay? But always remember the principle of the fulcrum. It's not about giving them 100%. It's about just managing that balance. So think of this Pareto principle. What is urgent and important? Always immediately get it done, which is why to-do lists, like I cannot work without to-do lists. Now, I'm a person who's motivated not by rewards or appreciation. My motivation is when I can put that tick mark, no, appa, I did it. Or I'll cut that on the calendar and say, yes, done. Some thrill I get, okay? That's my great reward. So to-do lists work very, very, very well for me. On my notes, for me, I always put tick boxes in my to-do list so that I can go and put, and I'll see one scratch will come like that, no? It gives me great pleasure, okay? So that works for me, but all of us are different. So what works for you, you need to figure yourself out. Our problem is we don't even know ourselves. That's the sad thing is, really like sheep, you're just simply walking like that. And it's, I think it's time to please wake up, because we want the world to change. And I'm a prayer person, okay? I'm all out for prayer. But you sit here and you cry and you pray and you don't go out and do. God himself is going to give you one boot. Because that's what he told Joshua, right? Joshua's crying, we are failing in the battle, everybody is dying, this, that. And God's like, get up and wipe your face. Do you know what's actually happening? There's sin in the camp. Go deal with that. So, yes, prayer is very important, but it always goes with work also. Okay, don't forget that. Okay, don't forget that. There's no shortcut in life. So what was I saying? So you basically, to-do list works for me. You need to find out what motivates you and use that to your advantage. So, but I definitely encourage to-do list, because if not, like I get like 100 calls in a day. Sometimes I don't know. It's like just back to back. And I'm not a phone call person. For those who know me, it is always an effort I put in a phone call. And some days it's like back to back to back to back. And my whole schedule will go. It'll just, like, I can't do anything because I'll just keep getting calls for counseling. And I love counseling. I love praying with people. I love listening. But there are some days I have to put full stop. So it'll go off on silent mode and it'll go in the bottom drawer. That's it. By temptation, I'll come and check the messages. But actually, every time I do, I get back into that cycle. So those are my disciplines. And earlier on, it was ulta. For me, it's easy for me to say no to people before, okay? While I first came into ministry, I'll easily tell people, not today, tomorrow we'll see, because I have to finish this job. Then God, He keeps telling me people first, people first, people first. So when I started putting people first for my job, my work, I would not sleep that night because I'll be up all night finishing up a task. Then I realized this is not about just people first, it's about wisdom, okay? And wisdom basically is, the minute you think you are doing this wisdom by yourself, you've lost it. Wisdom is for every single thing you listen, God, what do you want me to do, and do it. It doesn't take time. David lived that type of life. Daniel lived that type of life. Everything. Just tell me what to do. And that's a habit of prayer that comes not by shutting yourself in the room and praying for 1 hour, 2 hours, 5 hours. Okay, that's also too much. It's about that constant communion. When Paul says, no, pray continually. So Nehemiah was one type of a guy like that. Like, he prayed long prayers, he prayed short prayers, he prayed. So you need to, so wisdom of God is when to know to say no to somebody, K-N-O-W and N-O, okay? You should know when you have to say no to somebody. You have to also say, there are many times God will say, talk to this person now and I'll help you with your work. And what would take me a couple of days to process and think through, I would finish in matter of hours. There are many times all I sit and do is, I'll sit before the computer or I'm gone back to notebooks, and I just, it's like dictation I will hear. And I just simply write what I hear. Very interesting. And some of the best things that have come in my life, direction, counsel, or writing has come when God dictated like that. It's real. I've had friends who dream, like one girl was an architect and she would dream the thing. All she had to do was get up in the morning and put it into that, AutoCAD or whatever that is. That's it. So I'm saying these things are possible if you trust in God. Okay, so getting to this precrastination, a couple of years back during COVID with one of our youth groups, we were studying Proverbs and I had put up one chart, okay, based on some verses there. And there was a lot I felt. I'm going to talk about procrastination, but I realized God was talking to me about precrastination. So how many of you are procrastinators? Anyone? Good. It's good to own up to your stuff, right? Otherwise, how will you deal with it? How will you improve yourself? I fall into the other category, like I already confessed, of procrastination. So there is in Proverbs, you'll be surprised, there is more that is written about procrastination than procrastination. So procrastination, yes, there is something about laziness. So there's a lot written on that. But there's also a lot written about haste. So I have experienced very hyper, I will finish off my project. And then the prof will change your requirements. Now, who has to go and redo the project? Me. There are times I have to redo 5 times, okay? I was frustrated and I was irritated with everybody else, okay? Because I felt like I'm the one who's done the work first. They should applaud me and clap for me. But what happens? I'm the Buddhu that has to go back and do it so many times. And they are all laughing and they are learning from my mistakes and they are, doing much better. So there is a wisdom in procrastination as well. So what I'm saying is you have to learn how to use certain things for your advantage. There is something good in procrastination. There is something good in procrastination. There is something terrible in procrastination. There's also something really terrible in procrastination. So that balance is very important. And so waiting for the Lord is something very hard for me. Waiting, impatience, and all of that. So there's a diagram there. I'm not going to talk it, but there's a lot of information. By the way, if you are a precrastinator, you listen to this person called Adam Grant. He's given one talk on YouTube. So Adam Grant is not Christian, but I really like his ideas because it sounds like as though he's Christian. The things that church people should be talking, he's talking, but without God. Okay, so there is so much you can learn from some of these people. So he does a talk on original thinkers. So that's what, there's a book and a talk on about originals and how to use procrastination to your advantage, actually. So it's kind of interesting. So you go to that for that. I want to read Proverbs 14, verse 23, where something that Solomon says is, don't be mere talkers. So how many of you are there, gas pots, who can talk ideas? And I'm telling you, the church is full of them. Where we talk ideas, we talk solutions, we talk big. Then I will say, why don't you help me do it? You find somebody else, I'm not giving. Then you shut your mouth. Okay, I'm really saying this is a big, big, big problem within not only church, but in the world. With the kind of media we have, and everybody has an opinion, and there's so much freedom to air your opinion, to give unsolicited advice, if you understand that. So everyone is telling everybody how to rule, how to take care, government, this, that, your advisor to Modi, your advisor to the health minister, etc. But they'll tell you, come and help us actually do it, and then you'll be like, bye-bye, boss. So Bible says, please, don't be mere talkers. You know, who's this writer? I forget his name. So he said, those who don't do, teach. I'll leave it to you. Your profs who didn't get a job anywhere else, right after they finished their graduation, they joined a staff in your college. Your senior is now teaching you, but they have zero experience in whatever field. All they have is KT, right? And so they have nothing to transfer except KT. For that, I can sit in the library and pass my exams. Why do I need a teacher, right? So this is the problem with the world. So don't become that, is what I'm saying. Before you want to talk and advise people, please do something. Don't be someone who yaps so much, but doesn't have anything to show. Making sense? Okay. So now again about identifying yourself. There are multitaskers, and a lot of women fall into that category, but it's not about a man-woman type of thing. I am a multitasker. I can do multiple things at the same time. But there are people that I know who will focus on one thing at a time, and they will do it excellently. So I'm not like that. I will do half. Like I'll be reading 3 books at the same time. I'm still reading those 3 books because you're not getting done with one. Because you know, every room has a different book. When I'm sitting in that room, I'll read that one. When I'm sitting in that room, I'll read that one. The thing is, yes, it sounds great, but actually it's super dumb. Better is to focus on one, get it done, right? So there are different people. Who are you? Are you a multitasker? Then use it to your advantage. So one major problem in our world, and I want to strongly advise you against this comparison business. It's again that sheep mentality. We look at this one, we look at that one, and we always feel, so that's what pride is, okay? It looks at the other person, immediately it'll compare. And sometimes you'll be like, I'm better than you, okay? And you feel great about it. Or you look at that person like, oh no, you're better than me. And what is the feeling that comes? Jealousy. Very few of us are inspired by our peers. Mostly we feel jealousy only. It's a terrible disease, this comparison business. Comparing salaries, comparing giftedness, comparing skills, comparing abilities, comparing calling, comparing whatever it is. I'm telling you, run away from that mindset. Because if you do, you will never function in the uniqueness of you. You will never be satisfied at what you do. And probably you'll suck at whatever you're doing as well. Because you're trying to do something that somebody else is gifted in, and you are not gifted in that. So self-awareness, right? Like, Discover who you are. And today there are so many ways of doing that. In our church itself, we have something called Life to the Nth. Talk to your leaders about it. It's a very, very nice process. It's a set of 3 books that kind of, have you heard of the SEMA map? Okay, so there are a lot of these assessments that help you realize what are your sweet spots, what are things that motivate you, what are things you're good at, what are things you love doing. Make time for that. Okay, so find out who you are and start functioning in that rather than trying to be like someone else. You keep listening to Elon Musk and the way he works. You'll be really depressed because you're doing the same things, but you're not getting that type of outcome. You'll be super depressed. So figure yourself out and use it to your advantage. Okay, another word I want to say is, I'm talking too much, no? This whole idea of rethinking, again, I'm taking this word from Adam Grant. One of his books that I bought was about rethinking, right? Like, it's never too late to rethink anything. So when you face criticism, failure, this, that, rather than sulking and feeling like a loser and someone said value, right? Like, instead of thinking in terms of value, you take everything very personally. Because you failed at something, you equate it that you are a failure. Because this product was like, they used all kinds of asterisk-filled words at your workplace and they called it that. What is translating in your mind is, you are that. You're not thinking like, how can I improve it? How can I use this to my advantage? So we need to shift into thinking. So there is this saying of, stop trying to prove yourself and start trying to improve yourself. So every time you meet opposition, every time you come up with people who criticize something that you have to say, take it as a chance to improve. I'm telling you the spirit of the world, and this I'm saying is really something you have to catch in the spirit. And it's happening in many countries, including our own. There is no place for opposition in our country anymore, right? The minute you try to say something that is not pleasing to certain people in our country, they will see that you are squashed out of it. You lose your job, maybe you will die, you'll be threatened, something will happen, or you'll be put in jail. So basically in our nation today, as well as many others, there is no place for opposition. Now when you surround yourself with people who only shake their head, and there is no one to kind of, push back a little, you are in trouble. Because if I think I'm the wisest person in the room, gone. That's what Paul says. The minute you think you are awesome and you're standing firm, be careful, because the next day you're actually going to fall. So I feel like we need to come up with a better system where we surround ourselves with enough people who don't just simply say yes to whatever. I don't know about you, but I love a good debate, okay? And there was one of our life group, with all these IIT students. You can't get away with Chumma saying something fluffy and nice, okay? They will thrash you. They will not accept, they don't care, Sumanaka, pastor, they don't care. They will thrash you because it's not logical, doesn't make sense. And I thrive in an environment like that because I love a good debate. I get very hurt when I debate and people take it personally, like as though she hates us, she's being proud. And I'm very sad because then you can't talk, right? But find those few people that you got an idea, throw it out to some people who can tell you also the flaws. And when they tell you the flaws, don't think like, gone case, I'm such a loser. Think of, okay, now how can I work on that flaw and improve this? So please get the word improve, okay? Get the word value. Don't translate everything as people's opinion of you, okay? The last thing I want to say is about boundaries, because I think someone had brought that up. I was someone who didn't know where to draw boundaries with overworking, okay? Because I loved work. And if I'm not having enough to do, first of all, I grew up in a family, because my mom was working and we lost our dad when we were very young. So we were never allowed to use the word bored in our house. If you use the word, you will get spanked, okay? So the word bored, you have to come up with your own thing. So we are always coming up with projects. We're always coming up with fun things. So that's got ingrained. It's a positive thing in some areas. but also you'll get burnt out if you're like that, because I cannot be without work. I have irritated a lot of people by when I'm bored, I will go and start doing their work. And you can imagine how something like that will end, okay? So there are those lines that I've crossed. So with boundaries, I think the unethical, ethical boundaries, I hope you guys are able to draw that line. If not, those are things you need to discuss with leaders on where do you draw those lines of compromise. I had friends who, just because they didn't like the company they worked for, they quit. After that, not getting job. So you need some wisdom sometimes in this, because as Christians, it's going to become harder and harder and harder to hold a job in this world, because the world is full of compromise. After my undergrad, I wanted to do forensic science. And the director of the university here in Madras, he came up to me. I don't know why he chose to talk to me. But he said, "Ma, if you have conscience and all, you cannot work here, forget it." So I don't know, I took up his advice and I didn't join there, because you'll have to work with a lot of people and you'll not survive here. So I took his advice and I didn't go into that line. But that's the reality, is as Christians, it's going to be harder and harder. You have to be like a Daniel in that sense, to know how to be in it and yet not compromise. And so that wisdom comes by talking with others who have gone through it. So you draw those boundaries. There are boundaries of, especially if you're in the, not just corporate world, hospitals everywhere, you sleep your way into getting certain things, into getting certain promotions, into getting a better, I'm telling you, please don't cross that one, okay? Please don't. It's better to lose your job and keep your dignity, okay? It's better to suffer in this world with nothing and have Christ and a clear conscience than to start compromising. It's a very slippery slope. And I'm telling you, the fruit is not good. Run away from it, because the world is steeped in it. And it'll be a very, very easy slip. Okay, so that one beware of. My question is, who are your friends? What are you listening to? If all the time you're hanging out in booze parties and friends and binge watching, you're not going to be improving yourself. Your need for entertainment, and I hope this makes sense. Get over your need for entertainment, whether it is football and your Netflix and all this rubbish. I'm telling you, overcome it. Please overcome it. In my generation, they call the TV an idiot box for good reason. Okay? There are certain apps I have chosen not to download, not because it is wrong, not because God will get angry, but because I do not trust myself. So you can sit up binge watching a movie when instead you could have read a better book, right? Or you could have hung out with some people and had a decent conversation about something that enlightened you, rather than watching some rubbish. All this chick flicks, ladies, please give it up. It'll make you sorrowful, depressed, and useless. Don't do it. So I really want to tell you, the temptation is to sit and binge watch. I think if you talk to people who have come out of it, it's a stronghold that many people that I know had needed deliverance. Like, we have to fast and pray for them. So, addiction is not just about drugs and alcohol, right? Anything that you have no control over, be it food or what you watch or whatever you do, and you do not have control, you're in trouble. So, which is why fasting is a very good idea. Not just food, but the things that you're not able to give up. The minute I gave up social media, and I gave it up for a good 6 months, almost a year, the amount I actually accomplished. I finished a degree that I was working on. I finished so many things because I got off social media. This habit of reels, yes, I am on Instagram because I have to interact with you youth folk and whatever those things, but I refuse to go to reels. I just do not go there. And because people like me do not go there, they brought it up into your main feed itself, right? So I just avoid. I really, honestly avoid. If max, I'll see a few stories, but there's a set time. It's when I go to the loo and I'll start getting cramps in my cold Nilgiris place, I have to get up fast, okay? So I really want to encourage you, please stay away from all that. Okay, if you want to be productive, you better choose to use your time better. So sit and clock it. Yeah. So one word I also want to say is, please be people who keep your word. Okay, trustworthiness. Don't break your deadlines, not because there's some consequence or punishment, but develop it as a value to yourself. When Paul says no, Romans 14, you develop certain convictions. Some of you decided to be vegetarians, some non-vegetarians. No. He said, whatever, but once you make your conviction, don't break it. It will become sin to you. Meaning it's not like God is going to send you to hell because you broke it. But once you get into the habit of you yourself don't keep your word, why should anybody else trust you when you yourself don't value? So be careful with your words and keep your words. That's why Jesus said, keep it as yes and no. Like, don't be making big promises and not keeping it. But that doesn't mean God is saying don't make promises. He's saying make promises and keep it. That's what Jesus is saying. So with this, I kind of wind up. And I just thought I'd leave you with, because do we have that 15 minutes or we're scrapping it? Did I talk too much? Yeah? Okay. So just think about this, okay? The work for you is, can you please sit and clock your time one day? If time is not your friend, you sit and check out and use that diagram, with the 4 parts. What is urgent and important? What is urgent but not important? You get somebody else to do it if you're so busy. What is not so important but it's urgent? I just said that. What is not important, not urgent? You have to throw it out of your life. And that, I'm telling you, most of us do a lot of that. For me, I'll start cleaning the house. And the whole day will go cleaning the house, and actually should have been sitting and writing that paper. It's very bad. So don't follow those rabbit holes. Know yourself, and you'll know yourself when you humble yourself and sit in God's presence as you go, show me my weaknesses. And your weaknesses, when they come out, don't take it as I'm such a loser, I'm such a this. See it as your blind spots that you can work on. And so we need to build some healthy friendships here, okay, rather than just crazy friends. So my latest word to everybody is uncomplicate, uncomplicate, uncomplicate your life. Don't complicate it with taking on too much that you cannot handle it, that you don't have. So my problem, that 8th standard ka thing is, I got out of sports, I got out of my dramatics club, I got out of every activity, and for me, taking a vacation, I'll feel guilty. So literally, for me, I would never, till recently, I could never take a vacation. If I did, I will take work with me because I felt like I don't deserve a vacation. That's an all rubbish thinking. Don't be like that. So clock all that in. You need to take time out with family, with friends, travel a bit. That God is slowing me down a lot. And my time in Nilgiris is teaching me that. Slow down, slow down, slow down, slow. Enjoy what's around. Like, I've just fallen in love with God's creation. You can talk so much about it and write like David's Psalms, right? Makes so much sense. But you're not enjoying anything around you and you're becoming this miserable, dried up prune that nobody wants to hang out with, okay? But instead, like, be a person full of life that can help others. So